Hello, my love. Welcome to this video on consistency. Woo! If you came to this video and you saw consistency in the title and you were like, "Ooh, I want to learn more about how to be consistent because, people keep telling me that's how to be successful." I'm not going to necessarily tell you how to be consistent. What I'm going to do is invite you to shift your perspective on consistency, what consistency is, what consistency brings, and what consistency allows for in your life. Okay, so let's just start by saying consistency is, yes, a good thing, uh, especially if you want to find success. You're going to have to be consistent. You're going to have to consistently do the things that work for you. In that sense, consistency is like a devotion. It's something that you pray at the altar to every chance you get so that you can find your sense of self in it and find your sense of habituation to all of the good things. Now, because the word habituation was in there, I want to make sure that we are coming to understand consistency as an invitation to uh, complacency. Consistency can build upon layers and layers of things that we get used to, habituation. Just letting things become habit, letting the things inside of us that we tell ourselves over and over become habit. Let the things that we see outside of ourselves that are that's in our world that we um have to accept just keeps happening over and over. That is also consistency. But like I said, it can sometimes be an invitation to complacency. It can sometimes be an invitation to allowing things to happen, and whether you like it or not, just continuing to stay mired in the happening, stay kind of stuck in the persistent, habitual happening. Now, we also sort of confuse consistency with constancy. We confuse consistency with needing to do something the same way every time, at the same time every day. We confuse being consistent with being constant. And some people like to use the rising and setting of the sun as, consistency. But even the rising and the setting of the sun doesn't convey constancy. The rising and the setting of the sun changes by degrees every day. It changes, the angle of where the sun is in the sky changes every single day. It is not constant. It is consistent, but it is not constant. Okay. So that's just two ways that we can shift our perspective on consistency. The consistent being an invitation to habituation for success, as well as habituation for things that are not good for us and that we allow to happen just because we're kind of used to them. And we kind of we kind of just have to accept some things. Um, and I mean have to accept some things by virtue of like the government placing laws up, putting laws down, and then being things that we have to follow by threat of violence or homelessness. Okay. So, you know, complacency being something that is both small scale, local, and affecting you as a person, as an individual, but also grand scale and affecting a lot of people and literally everyone all the time. So we have consistency as complacency, as an invitation to complacency. And we also have the separation of consistency from constancy, not needing to be constant in order to be devoted, not needing to be constant and like perfectly repetitive of the same exact cookie cutter mold of perfection every single day, as you know, every day before you as they were in all the days behind you. So those are our two sort of perspective shifters right there. Now, I want to talk about consistency as a sort of program and as a sort of systematic approach to change and to creativity. We often use consistency in such a way that we allow ourselves to accept abuse um, by virtue of other people telling us that we're lazy. Hello, AuDHDers, ADHD and autism people, neurospicy people who depressed people who simply some days cannot, just simply cannot. Hello to all of you who were told that you were lazy or that you were good for nothing or that you just don't want to work anymore. Ah! That sort of pressure to be consistent so that you are not all of these sort of negative things that are put upon you by virtue of needing to show up at the same time to a job every day, to do the same thing all the fucking time, that kind of consistency. Like, that is, you know, a version of complacency. That is a version of consistency as complacency, and consistency as the constrictive constancy that is the expectation of the white supremacist, colonialist, imperialist, capitalist system that we live in. Okay. What I want to bring to you is consistency can be a systematic approach to creating the world that we want to see. I feel like, be the change that you want to see is a quote that a lot of people use to try to rouse and inspire in us this sense of purpose and this sense of, letting love lead the way and taking action in alignment with the things that we want to be doing. But the most consistent actions that we have to take are the ones that, our survival hinges upon. We often have to be the most consistent when it comes to creating the world that other people wish to see, helping them to cultivate that sense of consumerism and not enoughness, and yet also too muchness, that weird scarcity abundance dichotomy that we see that exists in our world right now. And what I want to help shift the perspective on when it comes to consistency as well is, the reason that I wanted to shift perspective on this is because all of the horoscope card readings that I did for Sagittarius season for, beginning of December, end of November, all had a layer of, you don't have to do things the same way every time or with every single person or in every single situation, but also it is better that you develop your own sense of consistency, that you develop your own sense of what is a constant for you in your life in terms of, making sure that there is one particular boundary that is for everybody, no matter how um, how wonderful they are at holding space for making mistakes, and no matter how forgiving you are in terms of allowing other people to cross your boundaries and then fix it, and for you to like use that as an opportunity for relationship repair and healing, but also you both learn lessons, you both get the experience, the practice of getting to have that conversation, so that when you need to have conflict and you need to confront somebody else who's harder to have that conversation with in the future, you're like, oh, I've already done this. Like I've already had to deal with this. So I'm glad that I'm glad that we got through it, and now here we are on the other end, where still and yet my boundary was crossed. So there are some things that should stay constant, and there are things that need to be practiced consistently. And I want to just bring attention to how the majority of us need to hear that consistency is not just something that you do for the establishment. Consistency isn't just something that you lend to the oppressor. It's not just something that you lend to your boss or your employer or the company and corporation that you work for. Consistency can be an excellent systematic way to cultivate change, to cultivate creativity, to cultivate all of these other compassionate practices that lead to community, that lead to the communal endeavor of we are all supporting and helping each other, because I know that at points in my life I have needed that. And at some point again in my life in the future, I will need it again. So it's the acknowledgement that humanity is not constant, but it is consistent. And that we consistently need the compassionate practice of witnessing our suffering through art, and we consistently need to look at that expression of suffering and tap into a desire to do something about it for change. We need to tap into change. We need to tap into transformation. We need to tap into all these things that and those listening, I'm watching you. I know you're watching me too. That they don't want us to be consistent at, that they don't want us to develop consistency in. You know, it's the same thing for working out for me. I'm not the strongest person. I'm not like, I can flex a little muscle, but that's it. I'm not, working out and exercising every day, although I know that I need to, and I wish that I were, because that sort of consistency lends to a lack of complacency, a lack of just, well, whatever happens, happens. I don't want to be complacent when it comes to my health. I don't want to be complacent when it comes to making sure that whatever world comes next, post 2024 election and inauguration in 2025, I don't want whatever comes next to be something that I feel complacently about, or that I react complacently that I react complacently to. And if you feel the same way, that's why this video is for you. That's why this video found you, because you needed this perspective shift. You needed to hear it. You needed somebody to be like, hey, reminder, hey, let's talk about making sure that the understanding we have around how we should be showing up so that we can create the life that we desire, so that we can change the world for the better and be the change that we wish to see in the world, you needed to hear it. You needed to hear, and we all need to hear that consistency does not mean being constantly one perfect distilled thing or embodied ideal, but consistently rotating through and recreating the self and changing all the time just with the seasons, because that's the most natural thing in the literal world, in the literal, on the literal earth. That's the most consistent thing in the literal world, on the literal earth is change. So I know that you needed to hear this, and I would love to hear how this applies to your life. Like, tell me in the comments what specifically you're feeling like you want to be consistent about, and the perspective shift that you needed to hear on this. Because it might be that you want to be more consistent in habits that help you. It might be that you wanted to be more consistent on habits that help others and that build community. I would love to hear it because I want to connect with you. All of this, consistency that I'm trying to build here in the grand scape of YouTube world, that is not just for me. That is for we. That's for the we. That's for the me that is connected to you, the self that I know can feel when other people are off. There is no need for us to pretend that there is such separation and that we are such nuclear little parts, separate little atoms floating around, when we're actually all just kind of jumbled and bumbled together, and we're feeling each other all the time, but we're just not acknowledging that. And we haven't accepted fully. Not everybody. Maybe you have. Not everybody has fully accepted that we're all connected and that what happens to one thing happens to us all. So if we're disrespecting planet Earth, then we're disrespecting ourselves. If we're disrespecting ourselves and we're doing dumb shit to ourselves, then we're disrespecting other people. It's all together. And if we want to create change, then the consistency that we have must be a vehicle for that change. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I love you so much. You're deserving of all the love you desire. And I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful rest of your day. Peace out, friend.